Bonjour, petrolheads, history buffs, and people who just got lost on the internet looking for CAD videos. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into the most scandalous, revolutionary, and downright gorgeous heap of French metal ever constructed, do me a massive favor. You see that subscribe button? I want you to hit it with the same enthusiasm a French striker hits the picket line. Ring the bell, leave a like, and comment below if you think front-wheel drive is a sin or a salvation. Now, let's talk about the year 1936. The world in the mid-1930s was a confused place. We were between wars, jazz was loud, and cars were basically glorified horse carriages that had lost their horses. They were tall, they were wobbly, and driving one was like trying to steer a waterbed down a flight of stairs. They had wooden frames, solid axles, and the aerodynamic properties of a brick wall. And then, out of the smoke-filled cafes of Paris, stepped a man named André Citroën. André was not your average car maker. He was a gambler. Now, I don't mean he bought a scratch-off ticket once. I mean this man would have bet the Eiffel Tower on a hand of poker if the deed was in his pocket. He looked at the automotive world, saw everyone building cars the same way they had since the Victorian era, and said no. He wanted to build a car that broke every single rule in the book. He wanted to build the Traction Avant. Now, Traction Avant literally just means front traction or front-wheel drive. I know today your mom's Honda Civic is front-wheel drive. It's boring. But in the 1930s, this was witchcraft. It was heresy. At the time, the logic was simple. Horses push the cart, right? Wait, no, horses pull the cart. But in cars, the engine was at the front and the wheels pushing you were at the back. It was like pushing a wheelbarrow by the handles with blindfolded. Citroën decided to put the power where the steering was. It sounds logical now, but back then, people thought he was trying to make water flow uphill. But he didn't stop there. Oh no, the 1936 Traction Cabriolet wasn't just front-wheel drive, it was a monocoque. That sounds like a tropical disease, but it actually means single shell. See, old cars were a body bolted onto a heavy ladder frame. If you took the body off, the frame could still drive around. Citroën welded it all together into one crash-resistant, lightweight, low-slung unit. The result? The car sat inches off the ground. It looked like a panther stalking a gazelle, while every other car on the road looked like a cow waiting to be milked. Let's look specifically at this 1936 Cabriolet. Just look at it. It's obscenely pretty. It's the kind of car that makes you want to start smoking unfiltered cigarettes and having an affair. It had these sweeping fenders, a grille that looked like an architectural monument, and my favorite feature, the dicky seat or the rumble seat in the back. In France, they called it the mother-in-law seat. Why? Because you put her back there, outside the cabin, where she gets blasted by the wind and rain, and you can't hear her complaining about your life choices. That is French engineering at its finest. Practical, yet petty. Mechanically, this thing was an alien spacecraft. It had hydraulic brakes when everyone else was using cables that snapped if you looked at them wrong. It had independent front suspension with torsion bars. Do you know what torsion bars are? Neither did anyone else in 1936. Basically, instead of bouncing on springs like a pogo stick, the suspension twisted metal bars to absorb bumps. It meant that while other cars were flipping over in corners, the Traction Avant stuck to the road like chewing gum to a theater floor. But here is where the story gets tragic and funny in a dark way. Developing this car cost so much money that André Citroën went broke, like completely bust. He bet the house, the factory, and the silverware on this car. He ran out of cash just as the car launched. The company was taken over by their biggest creditor, Michelin. Yes, the puffy white tire man. Michelin took one look at the books, realized André was a maniac, and kicked him out of his own company. He died shortly after, probably of a broken heart, never knowing that his car would stay in production for 23 years. That's right, this car was so advanced in 1936 that they were still selling them in 1957. That's like Apple selling the iPhone 1 today and people still lining up for it. So who drove this rule-breaking machine? Well, because the car was low, black, and menacing, it didn't appeal to vicars or librarians. It appealed to people who needed to get away from places very, very quickly. It became the official car of the gangster. In France, there was a gang called the Gang de Traction Avant. They didn't even bother coming up with a cool name. They just named themselves after the car. They loved it because it could out-corner the police, who were driving cars that handled like shopping carts with a missing wheel. If you robbed a bank in 1936, this was your getaway vehicle. It was the Subaru WRX of the pre-war criminal underworld. Then came World War II and things got awkward. The German army rolled into France and the Gestapo, the secret police, took one look at the Traction and said, "We'll take those, danke." It became the sinister symbol of the occupation. If you saw a black Traction crawling down your street at night, you hid under the bed. But, plot twist, the French resistance loved them too. They would paint FFI on the doors, stuff them full of brave fighters and homemade explosives, and liberate Paris in the same cars the bad guys were driving. The Traction Avant didn't take sides, it just provided excellent road holding for whoever had the keys. Driving the 1936 Cabriolet today is a revelation. You get in and the gear lever sticks out of the dashboard. It looks like a soup ladle. It's a 3-speed manual and the shift pattern is best described as guesswork. But once you get it moving, it glides. It doesn't feel like an old car. It feels like a modern car that's wearing a vintage costume. The engine, a 1.9-liter 4-cylinder, isn't exactly a rocket ship. It produces about as much horsepower as a strong blender. But because the car is light, it moves. You can cruise at 60 miles per hour looking down your nose at peasants in their modern crossovers. The 1936 Citroën Traction Cabriolet was a car that shouldn't have existed. It was too ambitious, too expensive, and too weird. It ruined the man who made it. It was loved by thieves, feared by the innocent, and worshipped by the brave. It proved that you didn't need a chassis to have a car, and you didn't need rear-wheel drive to have fun. Every modern car on the road today owes a debt to this beautiful financial disaster of a vehicle. It broke the rules so hard that it eventually became the rule. And that, my friends, is why we love it. Thanks for watching. If you want to ride in the rumble seat, let me know in the comments, but bring an umbrella. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Au revoir.